This deals with the interplay between short-term disability and paid family medical leave. My testimony is limited to just Section 3 of the bill, which would prohibit the offset of short-term disability benefits by benefits received under the paid family medical leave program. Short-term disability is a voluntary benefit provided by the employer, often at no cost to the employee. Before paid FMLA passed, the business community predicted that most businesses would drop short-term disability policies. However, insurers have responded by reducing the price on these policies to reflect the savings from the coordination with paid family medical leave. And as a result, I can tell you many businesses have told me that they have opted for that reason to keep this reduced cost benefit. I am concerned about the significant public policy implications of eliminating this offset. For one, I think workers will be incentivized to stay out of the workforce, as they will receive the same wages for not working that they would if they had returned to work. And this will profoundly have a harmful impact on our economy that's already suffering from a workforce crisis. Second, and definitely more importantly, eliminating this offset will result in many employers no longer being able to afford to both comply with paid family medical leave and offering short-term disability policies. They will drop these policies and employees will have to rely on paid family medical leave alone. This will reduce both the wage benefits and the number of weeks available for employees that need to take time off for a disability. And given that neither of these outcomes are favorable, we ask that you take no action on Senate Bill 1179. Connecticut's paid sick leave law has proven very costly to Connecticut businesses. This includes those that already provided paid sick leave before the law went into effect. Studies after passage in 2011 show that 90% of those businesses were already providing this benefit. Yet because of the rigidity in the law, a majority saw an increase in administrative costs. Both of these bills attempt to expand this law to include Connecticut's smallest employers, and these businesses are already struggling with many challenges. Connecticut is the 6th costliest state to run a business. Small businesses are dealing with inflation, unemployment debt, supply chain issues, high taxes, and not to mention new mandates passed into law every year. Businesses in Connecticut are already providing great wages and benefits, but in ways that work for both the employer and the employee. These bills will only do more harm than good to Connecticut's smallest businesses, and given all of the challenges they face, now it's time to be helping these small businesses. So for that reason, we urge the committee to oppose both of these bills.
Can you give us an example of a situation where you think someone would be authorized to stay home and collect the paid leave program, where they would be incentivized to stay home longer? I don't quite understand how that works.
You know, I think for the most part, people are honest, but in want to get back to work, want to get their full paycheck. But as we continue to tick that reimbursement rate up even higher, I mean, it's at 95% now, but I think it's just natural that if you are being paid the same to stay home or you're being paid the same to go into work, the one you're going to choose, of course, is to stay home. So that's what I'm concerned about. Certainly, I don't think that that's what happened in the majority of cases, but there are, of course, bad actors out there, and you know, that is something that we're just concerned about encouraging rather than keeping what the offset that we have in place now.
So the 95%, I know you probably know this, but it only applies to the lowest wage people, because as you earn more, you get a smaller percentage of your income from the fund. So it's not 95%. For most people, for all people, but certainly is for some. So wouldn't that be fraud if they did that? Because wouldn't you have to get a doctor? I mean, in all cases, to get the paid family leave, you have to have authorization from a doctor that this requires you being home or being out of work.
That's correct.
So would the doctor be guilty of fraud in that case?
Potentially, or they could just be listening to their patient. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, we know there's very little mechanisms in the law. This is something we testified to when the law was being debated in this committee back in 2019. That there is absolutely zero real mechanism for fraud prevention within this program. There's very few tools for employers to be able to take action on that. So Certainly, if you're suggesting that we should tighten up those fraud protections, then I think that's something that we would be interested in discussing.
Obviously, many of your members probably have, as a benefit to entice employees to come work for them, they offer this disability insurance. And then obviously the employee also pays in for the benefit also to the state plan. But we are hearing from union members that this is something that they pay in a way through bargaining, that this part of their, instead of getting maybe more paid, that they pay through bargaining. How do you react to that? Because it's a little bit different. If I'm a small employer or a large employer, I'm paying for that plan so I can, entice employees or keep employees. But the unions have bargained that as part of a benefit package. And I know you're only speaking on behalf of your members, but this bill overlaps both the union and non-union. Your thoughts on that?
I did hear some of that testimony, and of course, I obviously don't know the specifics of that situation. I definitely have heard from a number of CBIA members, however, that actually fully fund this benefit for their employees, and have testified to the fact that they have seen a reduced cost of these policies, and which is why they have chosen to continue on. So with them, and if there isn't that offset and thus that cost goes back up, they have made it pretty clear that they will just no longer offer those policies. So I can speak to those situations. I simply cannot speak to some of the testimony I heard earlier today.
And that's fair. It's just that we got to weigh it because it includes all employers. So thank you, Eric, again. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Weir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Eric, thank you for your testimony. One of the stats you gave midway, I believe, was that Connecticut is the 6th worst, I don't want to put words in your mouth, toughest place to start a business. Where did you cite that from? Through you, Madam Chair.
I would certainly never call Connecticut the worst in anything. This is my state. I love this state. I was saying that it was one of the costliest states to do business. And this was reflected in any number of national polls. I mean, one of the ones that we routinely cite at CBIA is the CNBC Best States for Business, where cost of doing business and cost of living have consistently been in the mid 40s out of 50. So certainly that is one of the sites that we're looking for. Then I saw a poll just the other day about Connecticut having the highest tax burden as well. I haven't looked into that study quite as much, but that also just reiterates a lot of the literature we have seen. So the point at the end of the day, though, is that Connecticut businesses are, especially the smallest businesses, are really struggling right now. I mean, we have national economic issues that are impacting us, but we also have a high number of mandates and other things that we have to comply with that just make doing business here very difficult. And I think you tend to see the larger businesses make headlines when they choose to leave the state for other reasons. But you don't see those headlines when it's small businesses. And I think if you add the high costs, the high taxes, and now you're adding this workforce issues that we're struggling with, it's just a lot for these businesses to contend with. So that's what we're concerned about.